Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato. And today we're going to be looking at some of the dehumanizing language that Israel is using when it refers to the Palestinians. And really, you can infer that this is how they think of the wider Arabic and Islamic worlds. And so let's see, this is a thread by Yehuda Shaul. Okay, so let's see. They're calling for ethnically cleansing Gaza, deliberately targeting civilians on a mass scale, and other dehumanizing language, which has become common. And so this isn't just anonymous accounts, anonymous trolls. This is actually members of Israel's government, various journalists from Israel, things like that. And so let's see what they have to say here. If all the captives are not returned immediately, then turn the strip into a slaughterhouse. If a hair falls from their head, talking about the captives, execute security prisoners, violate all norms on the way to victory. Okay, so they are talking about war crimes. They are talking about things that are completely illegal. This is an editor and a journalist, David Mizrahi Vertam. And so Hamas has offered to return various captives, and Israel has refused at this point because Hamas wanted to exchange the captives for some fuel in order to run the hospitals to save babies' lives. So that is the state of the two sides. Hamas, which they're calling a terrorist organization, and Israel, which is apparently able to get everything it wants from the United States without any questions asked. So those are the two sides. It's as ridiculous as you would think it is. Hamas originally took the people captive because they had thought that on their way back to Gaza that Israel would not shoot on the prisoners, the captives. And they were wrong about that. Israel, the Israeli Defense Force, actually they used tank rounds, they did everything they could to kill the Hamas militants, as well as the prisoners that the Hamas militants took. So Hamas was actually shocked by the inhumanity of the IDF as well, because that was the entire reason they took the prisoners to begin with, was to allow their safe return to Gaza, and that did not work out. And they can't even get rid of the prisoners now in exchange for some fuel to keep hospitals going. So just inhumane, barbaric Israeli perspectives here. It's just horrendous. So let's see what this journalist, Shimon Ricklin, has to say. Gaza has to be wiped off the face of the earth. Okay, that is a journalist, an Israeli journalist. Let's see. Next one, journalist and politician. Okay, let's see what Yunan Magal has to say. It's time for a Nakba too, so that's a genocide of the Palestinians. Palestinians welcomed the Israelis to, or I guess you could say the Jewish refugees to their country. Thought they could live harmoniously side by side, and Israel decided, no, actually, we're just going to genocide the Palestinians, so that's Nakba. And now they're going to do Nakba too. Or at least that's what they're planning on doing. We will see if other powers get involved. I have other videos that we're going to talk about that. I'm really leaning towards other countries are going to get involved at this point. And actually, some countries that might get involved are actually kind of surprising me. Things like Turkey. I was not expecting Turkey, however you want to pronounce it, to potentially get involved, but it's looking increasingly likely given the rhetoric coming out of that country. Okay, let's see what this, Likud MK, I believe that's a member of the Knesset, however you pronounce that, and that is essentially their parliament. Bring down buildings, bomb without distinction. Okay, so that's, again, more war crimes. This is a politician talking about committing war crimes, and American Christian Zionists are just like, ooh, yes, go bomb those churches. Yeah, kill those Palestinian Christians. That's what the American Christian Zionists are saying right now. It would be funny if it wasn't so horrendous, so awful. It's so ridiculous that the propaganda apparatus managed to propagandize the primarily boomer generation to this extent. Younger generations just aren't believing this garbage. Like it's so at face value ridiculous that there's no younger Christians that I know of that actually believe this. I'll be completely honest with you. I would talk to younger Christians, and then the older pastors at church would just say the complete opposite thing of what younger Christians believe. No one of the younger generations would ever support what Revito Gottlieb is saying here about bombing Palestinians, which there are Palestinian Christians without distinction, but the older generations, the boomer generation in particular, those are all Christian Zionists, and they believe these types are horrendous things. Stop with this impotence. You have ability. There is worldwide legitimacy. Flatten Gaza without mercy. This time there is no room for mercy. Okay, so this is what they're saying. Just outright journalists, politicians in Israel just like salivating at the mouth for committing war crimes. And for some reason, again, Americans, for the most part, are just okay with it. People around the rest of the world are not okay with it. But I would say we're still at the point where the majority of Americans, and yes, it is the older generations, that are still very pro-Israel. Okay, so let's see what this is. Another member of their Knesset, which is like Parliament, Ariel Kalner. Nakba to the enemy now. So talking about genociding them. This day is our Pearl Harbor. We will still learn the lessons. Right now, one goal, Nakba. A Nakba that will overshadow the Nakba of 48, where again, they took over this land from Palestinians that welcomed them to the land. A Nakba in Gaza and a Nakba for anyone who dares to join. Okay, so that's their idea of what is humane. Okay, so let's look at what the journalists are saying again. Shimon Ricklin, say why exactly do we have an atomic bomb? So they're talking about nuking Palestine. And I actually heard another person who was saying how horrible, how traumatized her daughter was. And then they found an old post from her saying, you should nuke Gaza, but the only reason we haven't used a nuke yet is because the nuclear fallout would the wind would sweep it to Israel. So that's the type of mentality that is coming out of Israel right now. Let's see what else they have. Okay, an Israeli Defense Force Major General and former head of the Israeli, I don't know what NSC stands for. Gaza started a war with Israel today. When you're at war with another state, you don't feed them, you don't provide them with electricity or gas or water or anything. Okay, so again, just would like to emphasize the hypocrisy in the West right now when it comes to how Russia is conducting its special military operation against Ukraine compared to how Israel is conducting its genocide against Palestine. Russia has been very intentional about how it strikes various targets within Ukrainian territory, Ukrainian-held territory, and they very rarely attack infrastructure unless the infrastructure is directly helping the Ukrainian military. And we're already at the point where Israel, in a few days, has more civilian casualties than the Russia-Ukraine conflict has had in over a year. Okay, so just remember that. Remember how they talk about Russia compared to how they're talking about Israel right now. And honestly, it is actually very comparable situations. I was reading a report, which I'm probably going to have a video on as well, about how I think it was like some type of million-word report, judicial report. I haven't gone around to reading it yet, out of Ukraine, stating that explicitly the democratically elected leader of Ukraine in 2014, he was not the person who ordered the snipers to shoot on protesters and on police officers, and that they have confirmed that it did come from Ukrainian protester-held buildings. And so we see very clearly, even the Ukrainian judicial system, after an extensive review that took nearly a decade at this point, they've come out and said, yes, it was absolutely the protesters who were, again, let me emphasize, overthrowing the democratically elected government in order to install a pro-United States government that were firing on both other protesters and on the police officers. And so they were trying to foment an overthrow of the democratically elected government in order to install a Western government. So you can, it doesn't take much inferential capacity to understand that if they're installing a pro-Western government, you can probably assume that it was pro-Western forces, and likely the West, that helped support that actually did the firing, the sniper fire. And I've read a number of different things on this. There was a phone call of, I believe it was European members of parliament who were talking about how, yes, it was absolutely American-led, things like that. They knew that the snipers were going to fire, things like that. So there was all kinds of horrendous things going on. But what you should remember is that the current crisis in Russia and Ukraine did not happen in a vacuum, and Russia responded using very humane levels of force and made sure as much as possible to target the military instead of civilians. And yet the West vilifies Russia, vilifies Vladimir Putin, and then on the other hand, you have Israel here. They get no questions asked. They can have anything they want. They can talk like this. All right, I'm just going to move on. I'm getting really upset. As everyone who watches this channel regularly, and I do have a few regulars at this point know, we are a very pro-Palestine channel here, Free Palestine. We do not agree with the Pharisees. The rabbinical tradition of Israel is just the continuation of the Pharisees of the Bible, and we will never agree with the Pharisees on this channel, Free Palestine. So let's continue on. The world finally understands who the animals we are dealing with are. This allows the IDF to exact a much heavier price from Gaza, not only from Hamas. Everyone who is celebrating now in Gaza should cry. It's that simple. Okay. This is a journalist and TV anchor saying this, so just wanting to wipe out Gaza. And they're also attacking, and I've talked about this in other videos as well, and other people have mentioned this. Hamas is located within Gaza, but Palestine is both Gaza and the West Bank. And Israel is currently attacking the West Bank as well. And they're currently attacking hospitals and churches and things like that in the West Bank. So what potential excuse? You can't say that it's Hamas and Hamas supporters there, because Hamas has no control over there. It's the Fatah-led government in West Bank. Okay, so just ridiculous. It's insanity in the West right now. I'm shocked. This start to World War III is worse than I could have imagined. Just horrendous. Let's continue on. Let's look at this journalist and anchor. This picture of destroyed neighborhood is how all of Gaza. Oh, it says this is how all of Gaza should look. Okay, wow. Okay, geez, they just want to wipe out the entire country, all of Gaza. It's just, I'm speechless. I'm just speechless that this is a journalist and some type of news anchor, Yunan Magal. Just really, these people should be named and shamed at this point. This is horrendous behavior. Like, this isn't even saying, like, push them out of the country. We can have just like one, we could take over their territory. They actually want to genocide the people, and they're talking about it on Twitter. Okay? They're talking about this on Twitter. This is the Pharisees. Jericho missile, strategic alert. Before considering bringing forces into Gaza, doomsday weapon, this is my opinion. Jericho missiles can carry nuclear warheads. Okay, so this is another member of their parliament talking about just nuking Gaza. It was not legitimate when the United States nuked Japan either. Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they were on the cusp of surrendering. They did those nuking of those cities because they wanted to use that as a deterrent for the Soviet Union. They wanted to scare the Soviet Union. They thought it would take forever. They thought it would take decades for the Soviet Union to develop nuclear weapons. It did not. And so they thought they would use this as a deterrent to cow the Soviet Union after the end of World War II. And so that's why they killed a ton of people in Japan, and they want to kill a ton of people in Gaza right now. And right now, it looks like the Muslim, Arabic, non-Christian, Zionist Christians within the world are fuming about this. The Orthodox Christians, the Chinese atheists, whatever other religions they are, Taoist, Confucianist, whatever they want to believe in over there. Everyone around the world, really, except for the Western Christian Zionists and the actual Jewish Zionists, everyone in the world is pretty furious at this point. It seems like it's just going to take one country to really like go all in. And I do think other countries are going to follow at that point. And at that point, it really is World War III. So just listening to how I talk about this and the concern in my voice, and hearing about how people like the Alexes on the Duran talk about this, you really should be concerned about the way things are going right now, because it is looking like a world war where pretty much everyone is against the United States and Israel. So my audience should be majority American. I'm speaking to mostly Americans about like why your perspective is propaganda and you're brainwashed. If you are listening from America, you should be very concerned right now. Okay, so let's go on. I want a big revenge. I really hope that our revenge, that of the state of Israel on the cruel enemy, will be a very big revenge. I don't call them human animals because that would be insulting to animals. Sarah Netanyahu, the prime minister's wife. Okay. I mean, it's hard to say if she's talking about Hamas or the Gaza people in general. So I will be more lenient here than I am on some of these other posts, which are very clear that they want to wipe out all the people of Gaza, all the Palestinians. Okay. So Shimon Ricklin, journalist, the war needs to be finished with two important achievements: territory taking control of all the open areas in Gaza. Okay. Population thinning out the population, the Gaza Strip, as much as possible by encouraging them to leave. So that's what they tried to do in northern Gaza. Where else were they going to get it? Where else were they going to go? They were going to go to southern Gaza, which is also being bombed as well. So it's just inhumane treatment here. This entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved. It's absolutely not true. Okay, so this is Isaac Herzog, the president. So remember, they have a prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and then they have a president, Isaac Herzog here. And so he is saying that it's not just Hamas, it is everyone in Gaza that is responsible. And so again, this is more genocidal rhetoric coming out of Israel. You're confused. We do not need to bring a significant achievement in Gaza. We need to eliminate Gaza. This means that the area needs to be cleaned. Wow. We'll talk about dehumanizing language. Let's see. Another journalist and anchor, Yunan Magal. Okay. Okay, so now we have another journalist again. So these are the people who should be speaking truth to power, truth to government. They should be fighting against government corruption, government nepotism, government evil, and they are completely encouraging it as much as possible here. So I spoke about 1 million bodies not as a goal. I said that if, in order to finally eliminate the military capabilities of Hamas, including Sinwar and Daif, we need 1 million bodies, and let there be 1 million bodies. Okay, that's obviously very concerning because Hamas is only maybe a few 10,000 fighters at maximum. It's like, it's not many people in Hamas. I mean, you might say between Hamas and Hamas sympathizers, it's maybe 100,000. And they're talking about 1 million bodies here. Like, that's horrendous innocent civilian casualties here that just have genuinely nothing to do with the war. And again, Roy Sharon, another journalist. Here we have erase Gaza, don't leave a single person there. And this is a popular singer within Israel. Don't leave a single person there. Whoa, this is half of the population of Gaza is under the age of 18. They're children. I knew this thread was going to be rough to get through, but it's rough. It's rough. If the goal of this operation is not destruction, occupation, deportation, and settlement, we have done nothing. In the end, the whole country will be kibbutz beri. This is another former member of parliament there. And so they're talking about settlements again. They've been building settlements all across Palestine for a while now in territory that they shouldn't be building settlements in. They're building it all across the West Bank. It's ridiculous. That's what people are talking about when they say that the October 7th situation did not happen in a vacuum. Israel has been pushing and harassing and murdering Palestinians for many decades at this point, and they're still talking about it. This situation did not teach them anything, particularly since this is very interesting. I think this is the first time where Israel has lost the narrative. The vast majority of people are against Israel all across the world. It's not just the Muslim world at this point. Although, again, from the polls I'm seeing, Americans, a slight majority, something around 60%, still support Israel over the Palestinian effort. So America, most propagandized nation in the world, by far. We must not show mercy to cruel people. There is no place for any humanitarian gestures. We must erase the memory of Amalek, biblical tribe hostile to the Israelites. This is another member of parliament. Okay, they're Knesset, however you pronounce that. And so, yeah, when they talk about Amalek, they're talking about wiping out the people entirely. So they're talking about genocide. And they consider quite a few different people of the world to be Amalek and Edomites and things like that. And so this should shock you. It should be very saddening. I would not blame you if you're watching this, that you have to listen to this in multiple kind of short doses, take a pause, think about it. Pray for the people who are struggling in Palestine right now. As I'm making this video, I heard that power and communication was completely cut off, and they're starting a ground incursion, if not the actual ground operation. So yeah, if you need it, take that break and come back to the video. So it is not Hamas that should be eliminated. Gaza should be raised and Israel's rule should be restored to the place. This is our country. Wow, another former member of parliament. So someone who in a position of power, or at least former position of power, who is saying these types of things, saying they're not even attempting to pretend. They're not even trying to gaslight you into thinking they're only going for Hamas here. They are genuinely telling you that they want to wipe out everyone in Gaza. That is what they're saying here. Wow. I'm going to read the actual words just to see. When Gantz and Netanyahu say the goal is to eliminate Hamas, what they are saying is that the IDF soldiers will be sent to occupy Gaza in order to pay tribute to Abu Mazen. In Oslo, we handed over Gaza to Arafat, and now we will drain the blood of our sons to conquer Gaza for Abu Mazen, his successor. Hamas should not be eliminated. Gaza should be raised, and Israel's rule should be returned to the place. This is our country. Ooh. Wow. Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. This is the last one. I don't think I could have dealt with this much more. This is, yeah. A leadership that has mercy on monsters who massacred us is not worthy of leadership. A ceasefire for several hours is surrender. It is weakness, humiliation. Without crushing Hamas and raising Gaza, will not have the right to exist. Okay, so I think Hamas was legitimate in fighting against occupation forces. As international law states, they are allowed to fight, again, not against civilians. If there is evidence of civilian casualties that is not due to crossfire, then if they intentionally murdered civilians, innocents, then that's obviously wrong. On Israel's side, even if they are in the wrong, I can understand why they would fight against Hamas directly. But this is, again, a member of parliament, Likud MP, member of parliament, Likud member of Knesset, and he is saying, or I don't even know, I think that might be a she. A leadership that feels sorry for monsters that massacred us is not worthy of leadership. A ceasefire for several hours is surrender, is weakness, is humiliation. They knew there would be a ceasefire. They are so familiar with this shameful conduct. Anyone who took part in this delusional decision is a coward. Without crushing Hamas, okay, so despite me thinking the occupation by Israel is wrong, I can understand fighting your enemy, so Hamas directly. This next part is where I obviously disagree, and I hope my viewers disagree as well. And flattening Gaza will not have the right to exist. So for them, they are of the belief that if they don't absolutely genocide the Gaza population, they will be genocide in return. So that's shocking. This was a horrible video to have to make. I hope that you follow Yehud Shaul here and see more coming out of what's going on in the Israel-Gaza situation. It's so sad. It really is. If you found this video to be informative, I hope you didn't like it, because it's not an enjoyable video to make, and I hope it wasn't particularly enjoyable to watch. But if you found it informative, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the algorithm on YouTube and Rumble, and please subscribe to our channel for more content. I'm trying to make other content as well, aside from the Judeo-Islamic War of 2023, but it's every time I make another video that's not on this, I'm just like, there's something more important I need to be talking about right now. And so if you have any comments, questions, critiques, or concerns, please leave that in the comment box below. I read all of them on both YouTube and Rumble. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.